Welcome to the Peak Performance and Peak Satisfaction podcast with Master Executive Coach Sherry Gregoff. Sherry helps business people perform better, get rewarded handsomely, and actually enjoy their work. After having her own career turnaround, she now helps other high-powered business professionals experience the same. Join the movement to work differently.
Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here. Feeling burnt out on your work? I have been there. I would venture to guess that virtually all business people have. If you have had it up to here at your job and are ready to tap out from burnout, this episode is for you. Contrary to popular belief, hustle and grind is not the most effective way to advance our career. It's time to cure the burnout and learn how to succeed without the sacrifice. Before we jump in, I want to shout out one of my clients who had a win in this area. Here's the quote from her. I was feeling flat, unmotivated, and that my struggle at work was all-consuming, with disaster looming in an ultra-competitive environment. You helped me remember that there are people looking out for me. It's always worked out the best for me in my career, even when I couldn't see it at the time. I can take action to rewire my thinking on this and relieve the constant pressure. This client acknowledged that she was making a tough situation worse just by letting her mind get the best of her. Her worries and fears were swirling, and she was incredibly hard on herself. We coached through this and got her grounded in reality, fully aware of all the evidence that things would turn out fine, so she could calm down and refocus on what mattered, including her health. Curing burnout requires a shift in perspective. When we are in a situation, it can be challenging to step back from it on our own. But when we do, we see more clearly how working our best career and living our best life actually go hand in hand. So burnout is just an indicator that something is off, that once we get to the root of it, we can perform better in all areas of our work and life. Similar victories are shared by all of my clients, and I have experienced it too in my own career turnaround. So let's hop to today's podcast content and get you on your way to experiencing this also. It feels like everyone who works in business is burnt out these days. Am I right? It may seem impossible to avoid, but that is not true. I find most business people are yearning to go from exhausted to inspired, overwhelmed to empowered, overworked to impactful, overextended to peace of mind. Despite how pervasive burnout is, the costs can be sky high. I know people who left rewards that they had worked to the bone for on the negotiating table, self-sabotage themselves out of their job just to try to find some relief and rest, made themselves physically ill from overworking, lost their marriage from putting work first, became estranged from their kids who were sick of being an afterthought, woke up one Monday to find that their work was life and regretted decades of decisions, were laid off and lost their identity, retired and didn't have a personal life to turn to, took their own life because they couldn't find a way to work and live that was bearable. It's a cautionary tale, yes, but it is always able to be turned around. There is always a fix. There's always reason to hope. This is a critical driver for my decision to coach business professionals. Having had my own personal experience with this, I feel called to leave no business person behind. I invite you to remedy this burnout now when it's a borderline issue. Like preventative medicine, the time to take better care of yourself is right now. Ask me how I know. I have been the poster child for burnout. Dark black circles under my eyes from waking with worry and panic throughout the night. Weight climbing on the scale, measuring the overeating and overdrinking to comfort myself. Snapping at my loved ones for no good reason other than I was at the end of my rope. My work phone like another appendage, a slave to every notification at every hour. Aged beyond my actual number of years as my high-pressure job took its toll. Health issue after health issue that I didn't make my work wait for, prolonging issues and postponing recovery. If you are experiencing some burnout, I'm here to say that you are not alone. I have been there. I know the pain that comes along with it all too well. There comes a time when you decide this is not how your story ends. Not one more quarter is going to pass existing like this. I invested thousands of hours and tens of thousands of dollars in education and training to heal myself and coach others through the same. Getting my life back has been priceless. Catching the milestone moments for my little boys has meant everything. Creating precious memories with my husband will fill me up for a lifetime. Caring for this body and mind that has served me so well will enable me to keep living fully. My last name means I am awake, I live. And now I can say that's true. Don't wait to get help yourself and give your friends and colleagues the same call to action. It's time to revive our lives and our career in the healthiest way. Hear me when I tell you that nothing is worth sacrificing your health and relationships for. Nothing. You are worth sorting this out in your work and life. You are priceless. Let me say that again. Nothing is worth sacrificing your health and relationships for. Nothing. You are worth sorting this out in your work and life. You are priceless. You may think, yeah, I know that, but let it sink in. It's the truth, and yet we let it fade. We compromise. We say it's for a time. We get convinced this is the only way and the way everyone is doing things. It's not. My clients and I are living proof. Read up on my clients' jaw-dropping wins and testimonials at www.sherrygregov.com/impact. I could not be more proud of what my clients achieve, and even more importantly, how they achieve it, while keeping their core priorities and values paramount. Their success is sustainable. Their success is on their own terms. Their success is in not only work, but life. So let's dig in on this burnout and reveal the causes behind it that you likely have never heard before. Once you see behind the curtain on burnout today, you won't ever look at your work in the same way again. First, let's define burnout. It's casually thrown around a lot these days. The Oxford Dictionary defines burnout as the failure of an electrical device or component through overheating. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines burnout as to cause to fail, wear out, or become exhausted, especially from overwork or overuse, and exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration. WebMD defines burnout as a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling swamped. It happens when we experience too much emotional, physical, and mental fatigue for too long, often related to one's job. Stress results from too much mental and physical pressure and too many demands on your time and energy, causing overwhelm. After prolonged stress, burnout can appear and is associated with too little emotion, motivation, or care. My definition of burnout is when the stressors in our work and life start to feel unmanageable. We start to believe we aren't capable of handling the challenges that we are facing, like it's a lost cause. So if prolonged stress is the predecessor to burnout, let's talk about stress. Stress can get a bad rep. If we experience stress in our work and life, underneath it is the belief that we cannot handle the challenges we are facing. Some stress can help us focus and rally to bring our best, to meet challenges as they arise. So, not all stress is bad if we know how to keep it constructive and working for us instead of against us. A big part of mastering the stress is getting back in the driver's seat with it. Unfortunately, we often are led to believe that the drivers of our stress are squarely out of our control. Your boss is a jerk. Your company is a sinking ship. Your industry is evolving and leaving your function behind. You're in over your head in your current role and dealing with imposter syndrome. Or maybe you can't think of a next step that would feel inspiring or motivating to take. We believe our level of stress is a direct result of our boss, peers, teams, the business environment, or luck. Like our career is happening to us and we just try to cope. Our tendency is to work to the bone, waiting and hoping for the success that we long for, hoping to be tapped on the shoulder for a better opportunity that will save us from this existence. But you don't need to solve for all those variables, and this is good news. The cure for burnout is squarely in our control. The more we recognize how to take control of our careers and well-being, the more this rings true. It requires a shift, though. It's taking ownership. It's taking the lead in resolving the problem. It's being willing to go deeper than just the painful symptoms that we experience day to day. Are you ready? I am there with you. This is all too familiar for me. And the truth is that even after curing burnout, we all require regular maintenance and tune-ups, just like that engine referenced in the Oxford Dictionary earlier. At the heart of burnout is internal conflict. It's a helpful indicator, like a fire alarm, making us aware that something is off in how we are working our career and/or living our life. The engine light is on, if you will. What I find most often when we peer a little closer is that there are 3 fears at the root of all burnout in relation to our environment, other people, and ourselves. I share this purely from my own experience and that of my clients. This is my intellectual property on burnout that I am sharing with you today that you won't find in any books or research. Number 1, believing that our surrounding circumstances in our environment is the number 1 driver of our success and well-being. When we feel beholden to our external circumstances, we then experience intense fear of change, uncertainty, the unknown, transitions, new experiences, unpredictable outcomes, aging, and a potentially unmanageable future. Our top priority may be finding safety in our job to maintain the stability and familiarity of our current situation. This need to cling to our current situation, assessed as safe and certain, will have us taking the following actions. We self-sabotage, resist new experiences. We have anxiety about the future, and we attempt to freeze time. Ultimately, in the end, this puts us more at risk rather than less, more unsafe, brings our own survival into question daily as change is unavoidable and constant, particularly in the business world. At this time of year, reorganizations in the corporate world are incredibly common. Organizations are taking stock as the calendar year-end approaches, and they start iterating their approach and their structure to lay the groundwork for a more successful following year. This is to incorporate lessons learned and improve upon the current organization and/or strategy. This phase of business redesign generally has its employees reeling. I am coaching several clients through this as I share this with you. And yet, when I look back on my own career, There were reorganizations at least annually. My role, reporting line, focus, scope, employees, and critical skill sets changed so many times over. Even my training and professional experience in being a change agent, driving new business launches, outsourcing, insourcing, technology implementations, workforce rationalizations, business process reengineering, and pure reorganizations myself, doesn't immunize me to the alarming impact of pending change to people. Having coached teams, companies, and individual clients through evolving circumstances, I will share with you the keystone beliefs and knowledge that turn every apparent crisis in terms of external circumstances into opportunity. We only fear change and uncertainty when we are assuming the outcome will be negative, such that we will be worse off. The only reason to hang on to your current reality is believing the alternative is worse. Our basic human need for safety and security dominates when we think we can't handle external circumstances. This is a self-protection mechanism in our survival brain that reasons we know we have survived to date in the circumstances that we know, so never open up to potential risk of things going south by welcoming change. Even if you agree that this is irrational, internalizing the opposite belief is easier said than done. Here is how to make it yours. Our survival brain is always scanning the environment for potential threats. Think caveman days. It loves to look for problems. So we are going to take it in the opposite direction and harness it by recalling all the things that we know for sure, no matter what happens around us. This may include how you have successfully navigated changing circumstances before and come out on top. Cataloging your skill and experience being resilient, resourceful, and scrappy. Even remembering what action you took to set yourself up for success, irrespective of the surrounding circumstances. What evidence is there that changed worked out for the better before? What did you know about your own capability in your work? What action can you take to increase the odds of this working out even better than you could imagine? This is how we tap into our creative brain and put it to work for our own good in this situation. Let's use the reorg example once again. The business professional rocked by the prospect of change, panics, doubts themselves, gets caught up in the office gossip, spends more time worrying than adding value, tries to hide, figuring if they don't stand out in a bad way, maybe they will be left alone and the change will pass over them. They may lash out at the very managers who are trying to place them in the role that would be the best fit. They may withdraw from their work, figuring everything is about to be turned upside down anyway. This is the most common tactic, and it is also the most self-destructive. The root cause is not being able to step out of the fear of the unknown, believing that external circumstances is the most critical driver to one's success and well-being. Let's contrast this with the intentional strategy to overcome that fear. By directing our brain to all the things we do know, we restore our confidence that change presents the biggest opportunity for our situation to improve. If you have ever been at a job where inertia was the pace of the day, or part of a huge organization that's like steering an aircraft carrier, you know how hard it can feel to find new opportunity. There comes a time when every super successful business professional has to realize that it is their involvement as the key ingredient that is more important than any external circumstance. With the appropriate attitude, choice of thoughts, and actions, a business person can thrive, even with the tough boss, underperforming team, impossible business conditions, at the cost-cutting company clinging to its market share. What's the quote associated with Apollo 13? The perceived disaster was responded to by the leader in charge. With all due respect, I believe this will be our finest hour. It's not the external circumstances that matter as much as what we do amidst them, what we are able to accomplish against that context, how we are able to turn any sour set of circumstances into our setting for our next victory. Crucible moments like these are when careers are made, and when your belief in yourself to thrive in any circumstance is formed. Welcome what is to come in times of change, and believe you will come out on top, even if it's not exactly as you imagined. Everything around us, our circumstances, are temporary. There's good and bad, and through it all, we press onwards. I happen to believe it will be good in the end, and if it's not good, then it's not the end. Number 2, believing that other people's opinions of us are the number one driver of our success and well-being. When we believe this to be true, we experience intense fear of rejection, judgment, conflict, abandonment, loss of status, loneliness, being hurt, vulnerability, and confrontation. A second derivative fear related to other people is fearing the subsequent loss of our ability to provide for or protect loved ones. When it's a top priority to both be accepted by colleagues and to stand out in a crowd at the office, we are reluctant to open up and express ourselves or commit. We avoid social situations. We people please and forego personal boundaries. We may be overly attached or dependent on support and acceptance from colleagues. We may avoid uncomfortable conversations and discussing important issues. In the end, counterintuitively, our relationships may lack deep connection. We may be overly accommodating and overly protective of relationships. I often remark that office culture is one of the most remarkable social experiments of all time. There is hierarchy, consensus-based promotions, intense proximity as workspaces become more open concept and concentrated, contrasted with hybrid work where the only connection is through that web camera. No matter the product or service of your business, people is what makes it all work. The extent to which the business succeeds is in large part driven by how this diverse set of individuals are able to communicate, collaborate, and combine their individual genius into a collective. That dynamic itself is enough to inflate the importance that any business professional might assign to others' opinions of them, their work, their achievements, their expertise, ability, and likability. There is this idea of quid pro quo, how many chits one earns from goodwill with another or help offered in either direction, a keeping score of sorts, and a scarcity around that level to which you are regarded can feel very tangible. There is no example where this comes to life more acutely than in the courageous conversations that are required of a successful organization. Think constructive feedback towards an employee, a manager, a peer, a client, or terminating an employment relationship, a product, a function, a business, or calling out conflicting priorities and finding a way to partner, to proceed, to prioritize, while keeping stakeholders bought in and engaged. The list goes on. Let's use critical feedback as the example today. If we believe that other people's opinions of us are the number one driver of our success and well-being, we are incentivized never to deliver a tough message, whether that's to an underperforming employee, a manager who is threatening the success of a project by reprioritizing last minute or agreeing to scope creep, a partner who is a critical dependency but isn't delivering on agreed timelines, a client who isn't providing required input to designing a solution that is fit for purpose. In each of these situations, In order for the business to be successful, we need to speak up, take the lead, do the bold thing, have the courageous conversation, point out issues and propose solutions, enroll others in a vision, etc. In each case, it is likely that the other person will be disappointed, surprised, dismayed, hurt, caught off guard, irritated, or feel called out. And so, we will likely avoid, postpone, or neglect to take that action. Counterintuitively, the business, the outcome, and the relationship will suffer as a result. In our growth as business professionals, we develop the skill of prioritizing success of the business over near-term discomfort in relationships. We have the difficult conversation. We make the difficult decisions that will impact other people around us. We do the challenging thing that our role is called to do. We lead. This is in turn what builds trust, credibility, and confidence. A descriptor I often aim for in business relationships is to be demanding but fair, to be direct but respectful, to tackle the difficult things and confront them, but for the ultimate good of all in mind. The more we do this, the more our reputation builds. Then, when we initiate the difficult conversation, it's more often assumed that our intentions are positive. I find speaking to others, point blank, to be effective. There is a poignant and bright line indicator of a heart-to-heart conversation in the workplace that I embrace. It's the most authentic and vulnerable place to be. It takes going there first, usually. It's showing your hand and being so completely honest and transparent that the person on the other side of the table sits up straight and takes notice. It's an earnestness, an open invitation to connect person to person to find a better way together. When you have done this enough, it's a skill set you can use as often as necessary. It strengthens your ability to know that other people's opinions aren't something to fear or something to prioritize, but rather another variable to proactively manage, diplomatically and with utter respect for your fellow colleague. There is no real love or service without truth. So being clear is kind when delivering difficult feedback. Shying away from sharing is selfish. It means we're caring more about how we are perceived than doing the right thing. Number 3, believing that our sole contribution is the number one driver of our success and well-being. When we believe that to be true, we experience intense fear of inadequacy, failure, self-judgment, unworthiness, not being good enough, fearing the loss of possessions and status, the fear of being ordinary and having a lack of meaning, or to feel that we're not making a difference. If we prioritize our own skill and success as number one, when we believe this is paramount against everything else, we put incredible pressure on ourselves to contribute and grow in our work. As a result, we compare and despair with our peers, contrasting their visible highlight reels with our own embarrassing missteps. So, we hesitate to pursue goals, make decisions, make commitments for fear of being wrong, or worrying we won't meet our own sky-high expectations. We avoid taking risks, and we doubt ourselves. Ultimately, counterintuitively, we stall our personal growth. Fear of failure causes us to freeze. I see this strike most often when we put perfect standards on our own contributions. I have worked with clients who refuse to call themselves experts in anything in business, despite decades of relevant professional experience and master's degrees from top universities. We can have a mental block on recognizing what we bring to the table as is. Sometimes this comes from one's upbringing as reinforcing the idea that we are never enough, that the only way to be worthy was external achievement and accolades. I have also seen this caused by work trauma, whether it was being placed in a role and subsequently being demoted or terminated from a position. The survival brain concludes here that the more we believe in ourselves, the more we put ourselves out there, the more susceptible we are to being disappointed. What this looks like in the workplace is not raising your hand for the stretch assignment, not sharing your ideas, all for fear of getting it wrong. In reality, the only way to truly lose is to quit or to not try. That is the only true failure. So, knowing that, we can put ourselves out there. We can leave it all on the floor. We take what feels like risk. And every time, it either succeeds or it helps us learn what will succeed next time. This is exactly how it's meant to be. A series of lessons that grow us. That's how we know it's working and we are doing it, quote unquote, right. When we play it small and guarantee our comfort by not giving it our best or using our talents, it frustrates our natural design to have an impact on this world, however humble it may be. The win, then, is to get out of our own way, to tame the fears that we have, to ultimately stop thinking of ourselves so much and our own comfort, and start thinking about how we can truly and meaningfully help others by showing up our best without the distraction or barrier of fear. Or more accurately, we can recognize the fear and keep going anyway, knowing our circumstances will improve as a result. Our relationships with others will strengthen, and we will grow. So as you hear these common fears that cause the burnout in our work and life, which resonate with you? Which fear needs your focus and practice to overcome? Which new beliefs do you agree to be true, but haven't fully internalized yet? How will you make it yours and embrace it to your core? How will your work and life change when you do? There is more to say on burnout and curing it for good. The first link in the show notes is access to my free course, 3 Steps to Cure Burnout. In today's episode, we went deep in the fear that causes burnout. But in my online course, we will cover my end-to-end process for addressing burnout. You can join me off camera and chat in your questions and comments live, or catch it on the replay at any time. Check out the link in the show notes to join me live on November 16th. Or if you are listening to this podcast after that date, find the link to get instant access to that course after the fact. Don't tolerate burnout. It's not necessary, and your work and life suffer as a result. You can turn this around. I've got you. Until next time.
Looking for support in applying the principles and strategies in today's episode? Sherry coaches clients one-on-one as their trusted confidant and advisor, helping each client create the work and life they had only dreamed of. To schedule your complimentary career strategy session, go to sherrygregoff.com/apply to book time with her today. It's one simple step that can change everything.